Solve 2x cubed plus x squared minus 7x minus 6 equals to 0. In this question, we have a quick look and we can't apply grouping or highest common factor, so we're going to have to go through and do long division to factorize this problem. This is the process that we've practiced in previous videos, where we'll start by applying the factor theorem for us to find a linear factor. You'll also notice this is a non-monic polynomial, so there's a chance that we'll also need to use the rational root theorem. However, we should always start with the factor theorem by itself, just checking the factors of the constant first, just in case there's a nice easy linear factor for us to use. Once we've checked all of those, if we still haven't found something, then we also involve the coefficient of the x cubed to get a few rational root factors that we can try. Once we've found our linear factor, we're going to use long division and factorize that linear term out. After doing a long division, our polynomial will look like this. We'll have a linear term in one bracket, and in the other bracket we'll have a quadratic. Since we are trying to fully factorize, once you see the quadratic in one bracket, we should try to factorize that quadratic term. We can use any of our quadratic factorization methods that we've learnt in the past. Once we have fully factorized, so now we see linear. Once we have three linear terms, so there are no powers on the x's, after that we can apply the null factor law, and finally we can solve to get x's by themselves. So it's a pretty long process if you have to do it from scratch. So we're hoping that this will have a pretty simple factor that we can find straight away, and then we just go through the process after that. So let's begin trying to find our factor. The factors of 6 that we're going to try are plus or minus 1, plus or minus 2, plus or minus 3, and plus or minus 6. As usual, we're going to start from the smallest one and work to the largest one to save us the most amount of time. I'm going to call this polynomial p of x. Alrighty, so p of, let's try positive 1 first, is equal to, replacing every x with a 1, we get the following, minus 6, so that's just 2, this is just 1, minus 7, minus 6, and I can see already that isn't going to give us 0. Let's try p of negative 1. I'm going to substitute negative 1, so 2 times negative 1 cubed plus negative 1 squared minus 7 times negative 1 minus 6. And then I'm going to evaluate this. This is minus 2. That is plus 1. Minus 7 times minus 1 is plus 7. And minus 6. In this case, I actually can see that it will equal to 0. I've got minus 2 minus 6, which is minus 8. And I have plus 1 plus 7, which is plus 8. This is equal to 0, which is fantastic. We have found a factor. We can write this out as therefore, and we do the opposite sign of this because we imagine x equals to minus 1. If we bring the 1 over to the other side, that's x plus 1 is a factor. Okay, that's the first step. We have now found our first linear factor. The next thing is to do long division, and I'll do it over here where I have a bit more space. I'm going to do long division to divide out the x plus 1. I'm going to write my full dividend under this. And we'll go through this fairly quickly. How many times does x go into 2x cubed? That's just 2x squared. Multiply the 2x squared onto this. 2x cubed. 1 times that is 2x squared. Subtract that all away. These cancel off, and then x squared minus 2x squared is equal to minus x squared. Bringing the rest of this down, minus 7x minus 6, and we go again. How many times does x go into minus x squared? It goes in minus x times. Then multiply minus x onto x plus 1. Minus x squared minus x. Subtract that away. These cancel off, and we get negative 7x minus minus x, which is equal to negative 6x. Minus 6 comes down, and we're ready for our last round. How many times, or what is x multiplied by to give negative 6x? That is just minus 6. Multiply minus 6 onto our bracket there, which is minus 6x minus 6. That's a good sign. We're seeing the same thing, so it cancels off and gives us 0. That's another checkpoint. We've got the correct fully factorized form from taking out the linear factor. So I'm going to maybe annotate, this was step 1. This way we did step 2 here. Now I'm gonna do step 3 here. I hope that's not too confusing. So I'm writing out my polynomial, p of x equals x plus 1, which is the divisor, and then I'm going to write the quotient, 2x squared minus x minus 6. Now the next step is to see whether I can factorize my quadratic any further. I'm going to try using the cross method to see if there's any factors here that I can simplify. Let's put, we need factors of 2x squared, so one will be 2x and one will be x. And then I need factors of 6 that will then also multiply to give negative 6, so one will be positive, one will be negative, and they have to add to give negative x. Let's try first doing, maybe we can put, trying to predict what it might be. If we did 3 times 2, would that work? If we did 3 up here and we did 2 down here, and then we just have to decide which one will be positive and which one will be negative. We need the one that multiplies by the 2. That will be larger, so that's negative. Let's just give that a double check. So multiplying along the diagonals, we end up with 2x times negative 2 is minus 4x, plus x times 3 along that diagonal is plus 3x. So that's indeed negative x. So we've done the right thing. So our brackets will just be reading this across and this across. All right, let's put that down. X plus 1. And then our brackets are 2x plus 3 and x minus 2. All right, fantastic. That was the end of step 3. And the final step is using the null factor law, because remember, our polynomial is actually equal to 0. So this is all still equal to 0. We can use the null factor law to get x by itself. Okay, so applying the null factor law to each of these brackets, we have x plus 1 equals to 0. We have 2x plus 3 equals to 0. And we have x minus 2 equals to 0. Rearranging each of those by themselves, we end up with x equals to minus 1. That's one of our solutions. X equals to minus 3 on 2. That's another one of our solutions. And finally, x equals to positive 2 is our final solution. And I'll just note down, that was step 4, just the null factor law step. Okay, so hopefully that made sense. We started with finding a factor. We then use that factor to divide the polynomial and get it into a linear term plus a quadratic term, multiplied together. Then we had to factorize the quadratic. In this case, we were able to do it with the cross method, thankfully, that's the easiest one. And we were able to get it written out as 3 linear terms. Once we had our linear terms, we did the null factor law to get x's by themselves. Okay, and that's how you would solve a problem using all of the steps and all of the knowledge that we've gained so far about polynomials.